So let's do a shop tour of my tiny little garage shop. It is an 11.5 foot by 19.5 foot single car garage, and within that we have built a 6.5 foot by 6.5 foot mushroom fruiting room. This is where the mushrooms bloom into those giant clusters of mushroom, and they are delicious. The room itself is self-contained. It is humidity and temperature controlled, and the filter or the air is consistently filtered. We typically run it around between 85 and 95% humidity in there, and it has absolutely no effect on the garage space. The garage space has absolutely no effect on the little room. Both completely separate, although within the same building. Anyways, enough of that crap. So that takes up a lot of my room. I'm left with about 180 square feet. And of that 180 square feet, we have the entryway here, which is not useless, but not terribly productive. It does house my Magnum Industries or Magnum Industrial 1.5 horsepower dust collection system. And I've got some room up there for a DeWalt. I believe it's a 10-inch wet tile saw. Absolutely amazing tool. Actually, I shouldn't say one of the best, it is the best tool for cutting tile I have ever used. And I've used some pretty damn impressive industrial tile saws over the years. Nothing is really compared to that. I've used $5,000 industrial tile saw that really did not compare to this $1,000 DeWalt. Anyways, enough of that. Let's get back to the wood shop. Oh, what's any wood shop without a good Hultafors axe? Razor sharp, of course. So let's start with the little drill stand, Dremel, little tiny Dremel drill press. It actually comes in pretty handy. I've got the adapter for it as well for the plunge router, which there again comes in very handy. Not a super great accurate tool, but it works quite nicely for what it is. So these are the cabinets I built. I have never built cabinets before, and I did a lot of shit wrong. There's no question about that. But they look kind of pretty, and I made them shiny, so shiny is always good. I don't have the cabinets stained on the bottom yet, and the interior of the cabinets has not been finished, but I've got all the doors finished, stained, lacquered, top barathaned, all ready to go, all usable and being used. And the biggest thing I wanted to do with this was have lots of storage space. And it does take up a little more room than I wish it did, but I did need the storage space so that I didn't have crap all over the floor. If you've got a tiny shop like this, 150 square feet of usable space basically, and you're taking up probably a quarter of that with benches, you can't have anything lying around on the floor. Simple as that. So lots and lots of cabinet space. And in the cabinets, there's just typical full pulled drawers, all my Craig stuff. So we've got 5 drawers on the bottom cabinet set, and then 6 doors, and behind those doors we have a variety of things. We've got 6 pullouts on this one, and they are all, of course, full-length pulls. And on this side we've got a larger tool pullout on the bottom, and then 3 smaller drawers for smaller tools and such. Another drawer just full of stuff. Oh, this has got my squares and things like that. And again, another drawer with pull-out for tools and the Dremel plunge router box. And the safety drawer with the gripper set. The gripper advanced system. Anyone using a table saw or a router table or a router of any sort, I strongly recommend spending the money to get this. More drawers, and one that's not quite finished yet. I've got a couple of drawers that go in there, a single slide, small slide, and a larger bottom slide. And I ran out of drawer slides. They should be coming very soon. And the last cabinet has a couple of small tool drawers and a larger tool drawer for my air tools, air nailers, sorry. And then again, just more tools and the slide out drawers. This little guy right here I purchased so that I didn't have to walk all the way over here and turn that thing on and off constantly. And of course I bought the 220 volt version instead of 110. Yay, moron. Anyways, we will remedy that quickly. Now the top set of cabinets. We have this guy, just a complete clusterfuck, but I will remedy that. It's got power, so I will make this all nice and easily accessible and usable instead of just that. All of my sanding stuff with my Orbital Bosch, some Varathane and Danish oil and Gorilla Glue and stuff like that. Oh, and my wife's iron. It's a Black & Decker, so realistically it does belong out here, I think, right? Some more cabinets, Varathane paints and such up there. A lot of these are mostly empty. And a dowel jig. And then this cabinet is kind of a double cabinet because it houses my Lee D4R Pro 24-inch dovetail jig. That was my dovetail jig that I replaced, the Lee through dovetail jig, which is a very good tool, but compared to this guy, it is nothing. This, of course, I got with the vacuum, the VRS, vacuum rest system or something like that. I have no idea. It works great anyway. And a couple of jigs, the dovetail jig, and the only other jig I bought so far is the box joint jig. This is an amazing tool. If you do a lot of dovetails, buy one. Some room for some clamps. Some little guys. That's my security system. Keeps anyone from lifting the door up. So do these, more clamps. My router table. Bosch router table with a lo and behold, a Bosch router inside. That guy comes over here and clamps to this corner of the bench right here, and then the black hose hooks up to the dust collection port at the back of the whatever that's called, fence. And the other hose over here that I hook to my table saw. When the table saw is in use, it hooks to the body of the box. So there's dust control on both the underside and the backside of the rotating bit, and it works absolutely amazingly well for everything other than what do you call that? Oh shit. I can't remember what it's set up for right now. Here, I'll remove this and have a look. There we go. For putting in dados. When you put in a dado, it draws quite a bit down through here, but a lot of it stays in the channel and falls out onto the floor over here, which isn't a big deal. When I unhook the dust collector, I just drop it down and suck up the bit of dust that's down there, a bit of shavings. Works great. Now, this is one of the most awesome parts about this bench. It is a multi-purpose bench, like I said. These tracks come off. It's Kreg top track. They've got registration dowels, and on this end I've got 64 inches roughly, and on this end I've got 84 inches roughly. It is dialed into the saw. The saw is solid, it's registered in place, does not move. And these guys, when I go to replace them, it's just a matter of, or take them out and put them back in, just a matter of lining up the 3 dowel pins on this side, or on this side it's 4 dowel pins, and giving it a little wiggle, dropping it into place, and securing it with 3 screws quickly. It takes moments to replace, and what that does is it gives me all kinds of extra workbench space over here to work on things, as well as this side if necessary. This side's a little more crowded because of the other bench here, so I don't use that very often, but I do use this side often. This is my main assembly table right now, because I do not have another assembly table at the moment. That's coming. Now, as far as these cabinets go, I've never built cabinets before. I have no idea how to build cabinets. So I looked at our kitchen cabinets and I thought, hey, it's just a bunch of boxes with some door shapes. So I started building boxes, and of course I did them all wrong. Instead of making, I guess on this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes exactly the same size, I built individual boxes, and then each door is a little different in size, of course, because each box is a little different in size. I did learn a lot. I think I would shave off a few minutes in time doing it again. And since I've never built cabinets before, I figured, hey, why the hell not do some inlay? Because that wouldn't make it any more difficult, would it? No, of course not. Let's see if we can find something that's not in the light. Now, the light is not great in here, so you can't really see it. But this is Wenge, and it is, I think they call it quarter sawn. I cut it on an angle so that the grain really changes from brown to black, almost like a candy cane stripe. And I can see it, but I can see through the lens of the camera that because of the way the light is, that it's not really showing up here. Anyways, it was fun, it was cool. And as you can see, if you are a teeny bit anal about things like I am, you not only have to, or you do have to try and make sure that the pinstripes line up, which they don't line up very well right now, and I do have to correct that because it's driving me freaking crazy. So let's go on to the miter station. Now this miter station is registered in place. It's got 4 dowels in it, and it's got provisions for a couple of screws, but the thing sits so nice and tight that I haven't bothered putting the screws in because it does not move. So when I want to use this bench for a different purpose, which is a thickness planer, I just take the fence off either side, set them to the back. I just put them back right over here. Lift the miter station, or the miter box, the miter saw out of here. Push the pin in, pull the hoses off, and lift the miter saw out of the box, set it on the floor over here, and underneath is the DeWalt 13-inch thickness planer, and that is sitting on a piece of wood that is the same as this piece of wood, except it does not have the registration pins like the miter saw does. The miter saw needs to be registered to the fence. The thickness planer does not need to be registered. So it takes me about 3 minutes, I timed myself, to swap this out from thickness planer to miter saw, or miter saw to thickness planer, either way. It is heavy, 92 pounds. I'm an old fucker. So I can see this becoming a problem as I turn into even an older fucker. But right now it's not an issue whatsoever. 92 pounds plus probably another 10 pounds of wood screwed to it. And it just sits right up here in place where the miter saw is. It is about a 32nd of an inch higher than the table. So the boards that you put in go in nice and smooth and come out nice and smooth. The limitation is from the 1 foot mark, which is, well, I guess it's probably about the 8-inch mark, is where the end of the plane is, to this door is only about 5.5 feet, or 5 feet. So we've got about 5 feet, and then the board hits the door. So if I'm planing anything longer than 5 feet, I have to have the door open, which isn't a big problem. It's an electric overhead door. I just have to move some things out of the way and actually put the pin back in so it'll lift it. I've got the pin out so I don't accidentally hit that thing and cause a disaster. Yeah, so this is a great setup as far as saving space goes for me. Probably not for everybody, but in this tiny little space, it's working out really, really well for me. And then over here, I've got just a little workbench with a mechanics type vise and my little drill press. And not a great drill press, but you know what? It does the job. I'm still lacking some tools. I need a bandsaw, a couple other things, but they will come eventually. And my table saw, the piece de resistance. This is the biggest piece of crap I have ever seen in my life. We had a fire at the farm, and almost all of my tools burnt down in the barn. So I've been slowly replacing them. and one day I needed a table saw. I don't use a table saw on the farm very often. So I went out and I bought the cheapest table saw I could find. And this happened to be it. It's a Craftsman. And when I assembled it, which isn't really assembly, is basically take it out of the box and plug it in, it was almost completely unusable. Try and rip a piece of wood didn't work. I came to the conclusion that the only way I could use it was to draw a line on the piece of wood I was trying to cut and just feed it in manually. That was the only way, done with, not using the fence whatsoever, which was fine because, yeah, like I say, for as often as I use a table saw out in the farm, it was okay. Now I brought it out here to the lake to do some finesse work, and that's when things really went for shit. I couldn't rip a board. I tried to rip some what the hell is it? That's right up there. It's the brown stuff. Shit. Very high silica content, very dense wood. Iroko. Tried to rip some Iroko. And Iroko is notoriously twisty. So I ran into some boards that I needed to actually put a wedge into once they went through the blade, and it was trying its hardest to kill me. So I had to just stop and figure out what the hell was wrong with it. Not being a carpenter, never being trained as a carpenter, and not knowing anything about this shit, I did not know that you were supposed to take your table saw and make sure that the blade was square to these grooves, or perpendicular, I guess, not perpendicular, parallel to these grooves, as well as being parallel to the fence. So I took a straight edge and basically just put the straight edge along the outside of the blade, ran it straight across, and with a tape measure measured from the straight edge here to the fence, and then measured from the straight edge on this end to the fence. And this end of the fence, the output end of the fence, was just a hair over a 1/4 inch closer to the straight edge than it was at the front of the fence, which of course was my problem. So I loosened the adjuster off, and I adjusted it as far over as it would allow, and didn't even come close. So I just threw the thing to the side and carried on without it. When I got some time, I took it apart, beat the ever-loving shit out of the fucking thing, and bent it as far as I could bend it with it still being functional. And I put it back together and adjusted it over as far as it would go once again. And now I am only out about 30 thousandths of an inch from the front to the fence as compared to the back to the fence, which is, well, it is what it is. It's the best I can do. The fence is actually in line with the grooves. It was the saw itself that was so far out of whack on the table. I think the thing was dropped on its head when it was a baby or something. I don't know. Anyways, it's functional now. It works. It is a piece of shit, and I do plan on replacing it with a real saw. And I'm not sure I have enough room in here for a proper cabinet saw, so it may end up being another contractor's saw, but it will be a good contractor's saw. Probably the saw stop, but I'm not sure yet. We will see. That is, we should discuss this. My keg of rum, it's empty. It's in here for repair. But I do have a full one in the house, and if you want to stop by and help me with that, feel free to. That's it for my shop tour, my tiny little shop. Hope you enjoyed.